You paid GST honestly. You have a valid tax invoice. Goods are actually received. But your supplier does not make GST payment to the government. Can GST department deny your ITC? Hello everyone, I am CS Sonal Tandu. Today we will discuss provision of section 16 subsection 2 clause C of CGST Act and landmark Tripura High Court judgment of 2026 that finally gives relief to an honest buyer in a situation which we discuss right now. But before going to the judgment, let's quickly understand all the basic conditions which require to be fulfilled to avail ITC under GST Act. To avail ITC, you must have fulfilled all these conditions. You must be a registered person under GST Act. Goods or services must be used for business purpose. You have a valid tax invoice or a debit note. Goods or services must be actually received. Tax should be paid by your supplier to the government. ITC must be reflected in your GSTR 2B, and you must file GSTR 3B if there is any output tax liability. Even if you don't have a output tax liability, you must file nil GSTR 3B. You have to make tax invoice payment along with GST to your supplier within 180 days from the date of issue of invoice, and time limit to avail ITC for any particular financial year is 30th November following the financial year under which supply was received, or due date for filing your annual GST return, that is GSTR 9, whichever is earlier. Section 16, subsection 2, clause C of CGST Act state that ITC is available to buyer or recipient only if your supplier has paid tax to the government, either in cash or through ITC. But now look at the real difficulties. Buyer has paid tax to the supplier, but buyer has no control over the supplier tax payment. Despite of full compliance by buyer or the recipient, can department still deny your ITC? Is it fair that buyer is penalized for someone else's mistake? Courts across the country have consistently held that this condition cannot apply blindly to genuine transaction. ITC can be denied only if buyer is involved in fraud or collusion. Let's take an example. If buyer takes an ITC on invoices without any actual supply of goods and knowingly participate in fake billing, this is a clear case of fraud. And similarly, if buyer knowingly deal with a bogus supplier and there is no office, no factory, no movement of good, still he claims ITC, this amounts to collusion. This problem is faced by many registered taxpayer, and that is an honest buyer over the year. Now the Tripura High Court give the clear and powerful answer to this problem. This exact issue came before Tripura High Court in case of Mr. Sahil Enterprises versus Union of India. Mr. Sahil Enterprises was engaged in trading of rubber product. He purchased a good from registered supplier, paid GST of rupees 1 crore 11 lakhs to registered supplier, and he availed the ITC, that is input tax credits, in accordance with provision of law. But the supplier makes an default in this case. He has a file with GSTR1, but he did not pay GST to the government, which he collected from Mr. Sahil Enterprises, and he filed his nil GSTR 3B. And because of the supplier default, GST department denied ITC of Mr. Sahil Enterprises even if he paid GST to some registered supplier. So the real questions before court were, can ITC be denied to bona fide buyer for seller's default when there is no fraud or collusion, or is it really constitutional to apply this condition to genuine transaction? Now quickly understand Tripura High Court's ruling in this case. Tripura High Court in case of Mrs. Sahil Enterprises clearly held that the transaction was genuine bona fide. Buyer cannot control or monitor supplier tax payment. Penalizing an honest buyer for supplier defaults is arbitrary or unjust, and section 16 subsection 2c cannot apply blindly. In this case, there is a no fraud, collusion or the bogus transaction. So the Department of Order which deny the ITC to Mr. Sahil Enterprises was set aside and High Court allowed ITC to Mr. Sahil Enterprises. This judgment is big relief for honest taxpayer. If you found this explanation is useful to you, like, share and subscribe my channel for more GST case laws which I explain in simple words, and drop your questions in comments box. Thank you for watching.